Well, joining me right now, we have Democratic Congressman from Connecticut, Jim Himes. He is, of course, ranking member of the House Intelligence Committee. He is also on the House Financial Services Committee, and we're awfully glad to welcome you on this big day. So we have Donald Trump's son, Eric, who told NBC yesterday his father would accept the election results, assuming it's fair. That's his quote. Claims of election fraud led to violence in 2020. Are you concerned that's going to happen again, or could?
Yeah, I'm very concerned. I mean, I don't really care what Eric Trump says. And, of course, ask anybody. Of course, I'll accept the election results if they're fair. Well, the question is, do they get the benefit of the doubt on this thing? And of course they do not, right? To this day, Donald Trump has not accepted what everybody else in America, except for his followers, knows to be true, which is that he dramatically lost the election of 2020. So, look, you can take it to the bank that he's going to not accept a loss if that is, in fact, what occurred. The question is, where is the weaknesses and how much does he, revert to the violent rhetoric such that, some idiot or a couple of idiots with access to firearms are going to turn up at a, county electoral office or whatever. So, look, maybe you shouldn't have asked somebody who was in the House chamber on January 6, 2021 when it was attacked. But look, he's already laying the groundwork. He's already claiming that it was rigged, right? So no, he will not accept a loss. Let's not be at all confused about that.
Let me tell you, January 6, 2021, you will never forget the hours you spent there. But let's go to U.S. intelligence agencies, which have issued warnings about the fake videos which could spread misinformation about the election. U.S. officials recently concluded Russia was behind 3 of those videos. You're a ranking member of the House Intel Committee. So what's your biggest concern about misinformation from foreign actors in the lead up to this election?
Well, I have sort of an odd answer to that question, Alex, which is, of course, I'm very concerned about the Russians in particular. The Russians are always the ones who, because chaos and violence is a good outcome for them. And I think that, the Chinese sort of are a little bit more nuanced in their objectives with respect to our politics. But because chaos and violence would be a huge win for Russia, they're just going to throw whatever garbage they can into social media, however they can do it. And of course, they're doing it. And, that we will go after them. We will indict. We will use the full powers of the intelligence community to name and shame the actors that are doing that. And I would hope that the president would make it very clear that messing around with our democracy is tantamount to an act of war. What really worries me, Alex, and why I have a hard time, thinking that this is really the core problem, is that Donald Trump himself is spinning out, once an hour, some fanciful, fact-free baloney that serves the purpose of firing up his people. And of course, Trump's daily lies are protected under the First Amendment of the Constitution and appear to be protected in the minds of his supporters, even though I suspect that 20 years ago, they might have said that a president who lies all the time doesn't have the character to hold the office.
Yeah. Speaking of violence, Arizona's Attorney General's office is investigating Trump's violent comments about former Congresswoman Liz Cheney this week. Republican Senator Marco Rubio, he said this morning that Donald Trump was just making a point. Take a listen to this.
The point he was making is not a new point. It is a point that has been made by people in both parties for decades, and that is you're all for war, and it's easy to be for war when you're in some fancy building and you're safe and sound in Washington, D.C. Let's see how much you are for war when you yourself get deployed into combat. That's the point that he was making.
Was that the point that he was making? I mean, what's your response to that?
Alex, it's the same old tired dance, right? Donald Trump says something outrageous and violent, by the way. And I don't want to spend a lot of time talking about whether Donald Trump was talking about guns in a firing squad or guns in Iraq, pointing to at Cheney. Of course, it's a reference to violence, which his people hear. So Donald Trump does that. We all get upset, as we should. And people like Marco Rubio launder it. They just launder and launder and launder, like, oh, the point he was making, or take him seriously, but not literally. I mean, again, I wonder how Marco Rubio, when we finally get over this, this period in our politics, and his grandchildren are asking him what he did to stop proto-fascism, I don't know what he'll say. But it's the same old tired story. And we, of course, jump for the bait, right? 3 times a day, he says something wacky, and we spend, an awful lot more time than we should talking about the wacky and dangerous things that Donald Trump says.
Well, let me ask you as a final question here. When do you think we will know the final results of this election, given how close it is? I won't ask you to make a prediction. Just give me a quick answer on that. When do you think?
Yeah, I hope it's fast, right? You know, uncertainty in the passage of time plays right into Donald Trump's game plan of creating uncertainty and suggesting that the whole system is rigged, even though we know it's not. So I don't have any particular insight. I do know it's going to take some time to count the votes. I do know that we should all probably expect to go to bed on Tuesday night without knowing the results, possibly of the House, possibly of the Senate, possibly of the presidency. And, you know, at some point we need to fix that. We have the technology to do it. But, you know, right now, let's just be cool and sane, and you know, hope that it's as fast as possible. And by the way, hope that it's as stunningly clear as possible.
Yeah, it all means a really strong cup of coffee on Wednesday morning, that's for sure. Jim Himes, always good to see you, sir. Thank you so much for joining me.